When it comes to the laws the citizens of this country are forced to abide by, would it make sense that the laws created regarding the morality of those people represent the majority? Good evening. Today I'm going to talk to you about the laws regarding morality and how they relate to the government. This topic is crucial because laws need to represent the opinions of the people who live within this country. On this speech, I want to show you how there's issues in this country that can't necessarily be solved by just directly referencing the Constitution. Instead, we have to look at the Constitution and find ideas that are indirect in order to solve them. In this speech, I'm going to highlight these moral issues. I'm going to look at how they reference the Constitution, and I am going to show how the government insufficiently tries to solve these issues, and then last I'm going to try and give a solution for these issues. Now for my first point. There are a couple of big issues that affect America, and we need to decide on these issues. I'm not here today to talk to you guys about a stance on any of these issues. I'll leave that to you guys to find a stance. But I would like to discuss them with you. First, we have abortion. Many of you know and have heard about the case Roe v. Wade in 1973, where the Supreme Court voted to basically legalize abortion. This has been one of the most criticized cases throughout all of any court decision, and many people debate this, and this has been for about 40 years now. What is the dilemma with abortion? Well, if you look at it, there's two separate sides, two separate assumptions people make. First, abortionists will say, you have to look at the will of the mother. It's her body. She gets to decide. And then anti-abortionists will say, you have to look at the embryo or the fetus that's inside the mother. Is it a human or is it not a human? And they would claim it's a human. And basically what it comes down to is that being inside the mother a human being? Another issue that we deal with is homosexuality. Basically, whether it's right or wrong. People have different beliefs about this issue, and they use those beliefs to decide whether they think it's a moral decision or not. And then also people look at it outside of morality, like, is it natural? Is homosexuality natural? Is it good for raising children? Right now it is estimated that over 10 million children live in a home where there's a single homosexual parent or a couple of homosexual parents. So it's a very, very large issue. But why are these issues? Some would say they're moral dilemmas, but I would say they're not moral dilemmas. And this is because a moral dilemma involves something that you look at and you see that there's two options, but both of those options bring negative results. When people look at these issues, which we all do, we all think to ourselves that if the government would make laws embracing our beliefs, that those laws would be right, and the laws that prevent whatever the other party says would also be right. So really what it comes down to is people have their own worldview, people have their own beliefs. For instance, with abortion, some people would say abortion's murder. Some would say, oh, it's only murder after a certain point in the pregnancy. And then some would say it's not murder at all. And then the same with homosexuality, some would say it's right. Some would say, no, it's definitely wrong. Some would say it has nothing to do with morality at all. But in each case, people assert their own judgment on the issue to make a decision. This can be seen here at Liberty, too. We all attend Liberty, and we've all grown up in most likely conservative Christian homes. And because of this, we've been basically, our belief systems tend to fall into line saying that, okay, we think that abortion and homosexuality should be outlawed based on our biblical beliefs. But now that we've talked about these issues, let's see what the Constitution says. And I'm sorry to say that the Constitution has no direct answers regarding these, as much as we'd like it to. And why is this? If you look back at the Founding Fathers, we can look at their beliefs, and we can look at what they dealt with in their life. We can see that, you know what, they didn't have the same problems. They would live different lives. First off, there wasn't technology then to have an abortion, so abortion wasn't even an issue. And then also, there was a universalized morality that had to do with their religious beliefs, and more people believed the same thing, whereas today, a lot of people believe a lot of different things. Beliefs are a lot more plural, a lot more diverse. But the only part of the Constitution we can look at to really find any answer to these issues would be the 10th Amendment and the Bill of Rights. And that's where it talks about any rights that are not given to the government by the Constitution before it are given to the states. And at the very end of that, it also says, and to the people, or to the people. And if you look at this giving rights to the states, that's how we're deciding homosexuality right now. We're saying that each state decides on its own. That's what we've done. But it's interesting that when we look at Roe versus Wade, it wasn't decided by the states. It was decided by a court case, and that decision was final, and now that's law, as abortion is legal, which is very interesting. But The part of this, the 10th Amendment that I really like is the last part that talks about, it mentions power given to the states or the people. And I believe this is really significant because I assume everyone here would agree that the overarching idea of the Constitution was that the people should have the power and not the government. And that's extremely important to weigh in because if that's true, then people's opinions should matter, not just the government's opinions. And but overall, if you look at Amendment 10, it really doesn't answer the problems. It gives you some ideas, but doesn't fully answer it. So I want to look at now how the government tries to answer it. And I would say that the current system of government is flawed because right now people should be the ones in control when other forms of government are, and I don't agree with that. You look at the government, you have Congress, and Congress has the power to make laws. They can submit bills and they can make laws. And if you look at the president, he has the power to veto and overturn those laws. But then you look at the judicial part of that government, and they have the power to overrule both the Congress and the president with their decisions. Their decisions are final, and they weigh in on moral. They weigh in on all types of decisions, including moral decisions. And it would be misleading for someone to say that a decision the Supreme Court makes doesn't turn into law, because whenever they make a decision, it is final, and that is law. And here's the problem. So you have Congress, and they're elected by people. We elect officials to Congress. It might be slightly skewed the way the districts are set up, but we elect them. But here's the problem with the judicial branch, is you look at that, and the president nominates the candidate, and then the Senate votes on whether they get in. And the issue with that is people who are supposed to have the power here really are kind of left out, as it's left to the president and then the Senate to decide. And the people are really very obscurely related to this, their election. And it gives the people a lot less control. And then you look at these judges and they're making moral decisions. For instance, Roe versus Wade, they're saying things like, we have the power to legalize abortion. And honestly, according to the Constitution, the people should have the final say, not the judges. And I think that's very skewed. But now that we've established that problem, let me give you a solution. I do think there's a solution to resolve this issue, and it's going to involve us taking a stance morally as a country. I believe that each state should have a direct vote. Each individual state should have a direct vote that weighs in on whether they think a moral issue should be allowed or not. For instance, let's say homosexuality. Each state would vote on directly whether that issue should be allowed. And some people say, well, that one couldn't be done because that's too hard, that'd be too complicated. But no, if you use the internet, a technology we have today, that would be so much easier than doing it, for instance, the way we elect presidents. And if we did have a direct vote, it would give so much more power back to the people. And of course, the direct vote would only be involved with moral decisions. It wouldn't be with everything. It would just have to be with decisions that come down to morality. Because when it comes to morality, logically, we would want the majority of the decision finally to come down to whatever the majority of the people in the country believe. And that using this system, using a direct vote, is the only way we would ever determine whether the majority want abortion or don't want abortion. And then through that, it would take away some of the Supreme Court's power and bring it back to the majority of the people. I'd say the benefit of this is twofold. Like I said, the people regain power, and then everyone finally has a voice in the moral direction of the country. But in conclusion, again, I'd say this country has a problem. And it's because our founding fathers didn't have to deal with the issues we deal with today. There's no laws regarding issues such as abortion and homosexuality, and we have to deal with them. But this has left an open door for the Supreme Court to come in and be able to make final decisions on these issues. And although they couldn't see the long-term results back in the day, I feel like giving a direct vote to the people matches in with the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, because the power is then given to the states and indefinitely to the people. And like I've already said, all moral decisions that fall into the hands of the government will then be left with the people. And something that Stephen Anzovin and Janet Poldos said, quoted here, "It is shameful that in a supposed democratic country that such a question as abortion should be answered for all of us by unaccountable government officials." So therefore, I think that it is imperative that our government incorporates this idea of a direct vote into the system. Then we can truly say we are a country with the motto, "We the People." Thank you.